I have this saying, the equivalent of the amount of attorneys in your state equals the amount of time it takes to get a permit because everyone sues each other. In states that don't have as many attorneys, then they get things done quicker.
Welcome to Friends of Build magazine. I'm your host, Ted Bainbridge. I've been traveling the world and working in publications for 30 years. In 2016, we launched our first issue of Build magazine, a publication dedicated to high-end home construction, renovation, and the innovative experts that make this possible. This podcast was created to have some fun and explore those who have taken on the challenge of building luxury homes in demanding locations. From navigating logistics in construction to excavating the earth, we want to learn more about these people and how their projects became cover-worthy. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, so welcome to this episode of Friends of Build magazine. I'm here with Mike Pollari and Doug Burdge, Burdge Architects in
Sun Valley, Idaho, and Malibu, California.
Yeah, thank you. And Mike Pollari with WHS Homes. Mike and I have gotten to know each other over the last few years. And if there's anybody that I know who shows up every single time, your commitment to what you do, Mike, is impressive. So thanks for being part of this. Doug, Sun Valley, as well as Malibu, like we were just talking about. I was in Malibu a week before the fires. My son and I go to a hockey game every year. In LA, we love crypto.com arena. It's magnificent, but we also are huge Rockford File fans. And so consequently, every time we go, it's kind of like a pilgrimage. We got to go out to Paradise Cove, and I'm driving by, I'm on the highway, and there's Mastro's Ocean Club. Man, this is beautiful. I'm looking at the houses on the cliffs, and a week later, it's gone.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, pretty sad, very devastating. Terrible. I don't know words to describe it.
Right. How do you process it? Like you live it. How do you process it?
Well, I mean, raising my family in Malibu and being in Malibu for over 30 years, we should be used to it by now, getting used to fires what seems like every 5 years or 10 years. And it's just sad. But this last one was the most devastating, not just Malibu, because Malibu, I say only lost 800 homes, but Pacific Palisades lost 3,000 homes. Altadena lost 3,000 or 5,000 homes. The numbers are staggering. You just can't put it together. And you drive through these neighborhoods and you drive up the iconic coast, PCH, and then there's nothing there. Now, these are people's homes, whether that was their primary home or rental home or whatever still. And restaurants are gone and commercial businesses. It's just, it just takes years. It's going to take 25 years to rebuild if that's it. We know from doing this and rebuilding homes for years. It's crazy.
So how do you tackle it? Because it's kind of like to me, it's like eating an elephant. You got to do it one bite at a time or else it's too daunting, right?
Well, yeah, you're not into it by yourself. Obviously, you're not just a lone person just creating plans and just find a contractor and build. Obviously, you need the jurisdictions to be helpful. And for the most part, they have been. And so between LA and City of Malibu, they've done their best to try to get going with permits. The state of California immediately said, okay, the Coastal Commission, even though these are on the beach, then we're not going to let you get involved with the rebuilding up to 10% of what you had before. So yeah, no, there's rules and there's new rules. And we tell the city, please stick to the basic rules and please just let these homeowners try to rebuild as quickly as possible.
So I remember Trump being in a fire station just after the fires, and the mayor of LA was there, and Trump said, you don't have to worry about the Coastal Commission. We already got that looked after. These people emotionally need to be back in their homes, or at least rebuilding them. And a lot of them couldn't afford it because they got in and they've been in those homes for years. How do you rebuild at today's prices?
Well, that's always the big thing because, people that had $2 million in insurance, even though that sounds like a lot of money, but they need 4, or they had 1 and they need 3. They have to either wait for a lawsuit against the utility that caused the fire or the fire department or somebody that they can blame. And this has happened in the past So that's the problem. People that would have means or can build exactly the same, they had proper insurance, if at all, then they are the ones that are rebuilding now. And the Palisades is definitely rebuilt. In Malibu itself, is issued about probably 10 permits after a year and a couple months. But they're gaining some traction. But yes, it comes down to the money. And when you're building construction cost of 800 to $1,000 a foot, you tell that to people around the country and they just can't believe it. Why does it cost so much to build a house in California? Just because it does.
And yet you're also in Sun Valley, and that's another place that's fairly expensive to build in. So let's kind of get the two of you together so we've got some context here. So Mike, tell me about your relationship with Doug and how you guys connected originally, because I think that's going to dovetail into disaster projects and how you guys work so well together.
Yeah, so Doug and I were involved in a really great project where the barn that he's sitting in currently was built on his property for hosting his son's wedding. And I really love the story that Doug tells about how he and his wife talked about how this barn was going to go up. But one of the great things about, the way that we worked together on the project was the ability for us to be able to take the design that Doug came up with, work it through our process, and then be fabricating all of the parts in our facility, manufacturing the SIP panels, while all the on-site work was happening, foundation work, the on-site, grading, so that everything was ready when our materials showed up. And I think that's one of the things that's really critical about kind of the tandem work that we do in conjunction with both, architects, builders all around the country. It's just the kind of the way that our process works seamlessly.
So this is the barn in Sun Valley?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. He's sitting in it currently.
I love Sun Valley. I think where you live is great. What was it like working with Mike and his team?
Well, this is where we kind of knew that we were going to have a good working relationships in the beginning. Because again, when I, had started a project, one, I knew the homeowner, me. One, I knew the architect, me. So, those two check boxes made it easy. And then I said, well, how do I build this thing in a quick period of time? Remember, we had a wedding that was coming up and I had to get all this stuff done within a year and a half, including design. And I had to figure, that's what most people figure for construction. So I said, well, I need to find a company that can build what I want, which is a custom design, but in more of a prefabricated situation, which I was doing in Southern California, but then finding somebody up that's going to work up here. So I researched a couple different companies and I landed on timber peg because I wanted the old school way to do it, which is, the peg, mortise and tenons, as you can see, like in a lot of my beams. I didn't want any steel. I wanted something with a fairly fast erection time. And so then I started researching more and I realized, oh my gosh, these guys even provide this, not just the skeleton or the frame, but also what we call the envelope or the SIP panels. And then they laser cut all that. And then they actually pre-stain everything too. So I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be awesome. So then we started talking and then we did all the shop drawings and got stuff underway. But the whole point is that whoever company it is, happened to be a timber peg in this case, while they're doing all this work in the factory, a builder is on site for the first 3-4 months doing all his on sites, which is, doing the grading and the utilities and the pouring the slabs. So when all that's done, all of a sudden, voila, all these trucks show up with all the frames and all the pieces. It's all laser cut and it's just unbelievable. And as we started working together, there's so many other byproducts out of this. There's really no construction waste because you're not sawing and cutting extra beams and putting stuff to the landfill. So I keep telling people that's a huge thing. Besides the speeds, besides the quality. And this was the first project that we'd worked together with them. And you mentioned about the fires previously. And that's when I immediately called Mike because the builder show was going on last year. And I said, hey, listen, we need to team up. We need to let people know this is another way, if they want to get back in their homes quicker, that this is a system that you can do. It's do a design build. You design, they build it in their factory, the parts and pieces come out. Hey, shipping is meaningless in our country. You can drive anywhere. So the fact that they're back east, we're on the big northwest, and even LA is down southwest. So it was just everything kind of came together, and it's just worked out really, really well for the family, especially.
Okay, so how is it building for yourself, Doug, as opposed to building for a client? Because I got to believe you analyze things a little bit differently when it's personal.
Well, yeah, the joke in our family is that, usually when you're married, and we are still married, I've been married 35 years, usually when you're building your own home, it's like you assign one of your spouses to be, okay, you're the point person here. We can't both, we'll never get anything done if we're trying to make decisions. So I was the point person on this project, even though, yes, my wife, who's an interior designer, had a ton of say on what we were creating. But, so you have a seamless a decision-making process, and I'm the architect and I'm the interior designer. So I could only blame myself if something's not here or on time. So if you have that much control, which is really rare because it's hard, usually it's like you have the designer, the owner, the architect, and the builder's rep all in the same hat or wearing the same hat,
Yep.
then that's where it just doesn't happen that quickly. But this is just being organized and understanding, what I was up against with timber peg. And we knew early on that they took a design that I wanted to create, which was this Burdge barn design. And I think it's even in their catalog now, but it's based on their components. I didn't reinvent the wheel of how they structurally create distances of beam spans. We had like a 12-foot on center. We knew our barn was 35 feet tall. We wanted a loft. So what we told Timberpeg was nothing tricky to them. It's just that they took our design, put it in CAD, hired a local, in this case, Boise, Idaho engineer, because they work with local engineers in every state. And then everything just worked out. It's the window and door packages were sent to them. They laser cut per those specs. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't imagine a project going as quickly and as well as this one did.
Okay, and I'd like to think that there weren't too many change orders because you had all the hats in one brain.
Well, you don't have a change order because you have these truss systems and you have the post and beam systems, and there's nothing really to change. I mean, the only thing that I had done is that I didn't want drywall inside of my classic barn. I said no drywall, so I wanted wood everywhere. So I did my own wood siding inside, and then I created, because technically the name of the barn is BAR-N, so it's actually a party barn with a big bar in the back. So we did the custom designs on that, and we decided to make where the stairway is a silo, a typical silo, which is where we put the stair up to the loft. So put a bathroom underneath that. So yeah, we did some things on our own, but again, I was in charge, and so it wasn't really a change order. I don't even think we had any change orders, right, Mike?
No. And I think that's one of the things that's, really comes into play with utilizing our system with an architect drawn set of plans is that they are the ones that are able to control the whole process. If they're the ones that are saying, this is what we want to work with and the way that we want it to look, then that really helps us with our system.
So, Mike, what did you learn from dealing with an architect who is working on his own personal project that maybe you didn't know before? And also, what are the pitfalls that you encounter when dealing with clients as part of your education that they didn't know?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really great about working with an architect like Doug is that he knows exactly what he wants. And so when you're getting those drawings and red lines back, it's really easy to interpret what they're looking for in terms of changes. So it's not like, hey, here's what are we trying to do here? How are we going to try to create this change? So that was really simple as it related to trying to get the parts fabricated. And then one of the things that's really unique on every project is dealing with the builder on the job. And that's one of the things that's really cool about the projects that I do. I get to typically visit every single one of the jobs. And so I get to go out and make sure that everything's going together correctly, make sure that the builder, if they have any questions, knows that they can really rely on us as a resource. And I think that's one of the things that's really critical that separates us from a lot of companies is just having that backup to know that, hey, I've got a question about this. I know that I can call the project manager, in this case, me, and ask those questions at any time of the project. One of the things I joke about is I love to get FaceTime calls later in the day from job sites where somebody will take their phone and they'll say, hey, what do I do here? And I'll say, hey, no problem. Let me pull up the plans and let me show you, how we should take care of that for you.
And the fact that you show up on every job site, and I know you do because you're constantly on an airplane, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, one of the things, Ted, that I wanted to mention that, what Mike has to work with, it's obviously there's us professionals and engineers, but, to actually team up with the local builders because, Mike is providing the product and the pieces. And then when that truck shows up, everything's just numbered like Tinker Toys, with the erector set, is that we work with a great builder we worked with before. It was Riley Buck and his team at Pioneer Construction Company. And they built a lot of rustic type log homes, and they're used to working with wood, but their framers had never put together a timber peg home, which is kind of like, okay, this is kind of scary. Are you going to be able to figure this out? Listen, it wasn't tough. These guys are obviously, every framer I have such admiration for. They're up there, huge scaffolding, and in the
Yep.
winter, the snowing out, and they're just tooling it along and making it all happen. And they did. And so, working with the local builders, and I know throughout the country, Mike's back east, we're in the West. They've now have other companies. So now this particular builder that we work with, they're ready to go. I could say that they're certified, right? Because they've been through one, and
Right.
so that was really another part of it. It could have been a disaster, right? It could have. Everyone hires their contractor thinking everything's going to work out, and then it doesn't, right? So we had to make sure as an owner too, because this is another thing contractors get frustrated is payments. It's like everyone's complaining and not realizing that the owner's actually not going to take responsibility for keeping up with payments. So we didn't want to have that be an issue too. Just keep everyone happy, keep them paid, keep them going, and it all worked out.
So why wouldn't more people use timber peg or use a system like what you guys have? Because obviously there are other companies out there. When we built our house in Scottsdale, we didn't have any system. It was just the builder hired framers, and after the slab, we started hammering away. I like the Lego idea a whole lot better.
Yeah, Mike, let me yeah, no, it's great.
Yep. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that basically when Mike and I asked that question a lot, we even asked it last year about, why isn't this system used a lot? And I said, well, listen, most homes don't have this extensive vaulted ceiling, expose the beams, expose the trusses. If somebody wants that's not typically associated with what we associate with a modern home, where it's all white walls and white ceilings and not really exposing beams. And if they are beams, they're probably steel beams, maybe inside if it's that modern of a home. So there's little limited on that. But if somebody wants to be expressive and knows they have vaulted ceilings and knows they have it because it is this frame, why would you build this frame and then cover it all up? Right. So that would be like, oh my gosh, why did you do that? So having an exposed frame or exposed skeleton, this is the only way to build in my mind, but it has to be that type of an end product. It's not typically every home. It's great because I know Mike does barn dominiums and they do regular barns, or they might do an airplane hangar, or they might do commercial buildings or residences. But it's typically anybody that wants this more, I'll call it a traditional look of a vaulted beam, post and beam ceiling, that they would want to do that. That's my answer a little bit to that question.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think that the answer that I always get, and out of venues like the International Builders Show, is that a lot of builders, they like the control of making sure that their guys have the work. They want their framers on site, having the control of all the framing work. We have an element of our business where we provide a 2x6 panelized component. And a lot of that work, has been spreading throughout the country where, builders are seeing the benefits of having panelized construction in addition to now timber frame and SIP construction as a means of efficiency. And people want to try to get these houses up quicker. They want to get them weathered in quicker. And, one of the things that I always point out to a lot of my end user clients when they're building in specific areas of the country, our shell package typically doesn't range, based upon the geographical code that somebody's building in. I was talking to somebody that was building outside of South Lake Tahoe the other day, and they're building in an area where it's, $1,500 to $1,800 a square foot, but our package is still $150 to $180 a square foot, regardless of where you're going to ship it. At that point, you need to find a builder that's going to be willing to put up our shell package and then finish the home to turnkey. And that's such a big thing for, I think an end user client, as long as they're willing to get a builder that's able to go along with our system.
Okay, so that's a huge delta. And I know that most of the homes, whether it be in Sun Valley, Doug, or whether it be in Scottsdale, a lot of the homes that we see, $1,500 a foot is the floor. Now, that's finished, but if you can save money on the framing package, the framing is what, 12% of the build costs?
Well, if you look at it that way, usually, and it used to be that framing is the third. I mean, it's like when you're you're including everything. I'm talking about maybe your shell, your building
Yep.
envelope, and
Okay.
versus systems and everything else. But yeah, what Mike's providing, and then you get into the envelope structure too. It's not just the post and beams as we show in this picture here. it's obviously what we call the envelope. In this case, where we have a colder climate, where we can create an R value, higher R value, and thick walls. We have 9-inch thick structural insulated panel systems, which Mike provided all of those too. That was an integrated part of it. So yeah, no, it's education and anything. I mean, I've been doing all this work, and every time I, going back to the fires, I always try to figure out what's a quicker way to get people back into their houses.
Yeah.
After this 2018 fire, which is 8 years ago, in Malibu, we researched a bunch of prefab companies, and they came to our office because we're the biggest office in Malibu. And they came to us and say, hey, I do this and that and the other thing. And I did work with a couple of them. Plant Prefab is one of them, biggest one in Southern California. And we worked together on a couple of projects. And I had to learn from myself, hey, can I sell this to somebody else? You don't want to recommend somebody and then come back to you later and says, why did you recommend this company to me? So no one wants that. So it's just, listen, it's going to happen. It's just that in today's world, people are not going to accept houses that take 2-3 years under construction. That's just brutal. You need
Right.
you need to make it quicker without sacrificing the quality, of course, which certainly working timber peg, that was never an issue.
So,
Exactly.
Doug, are you finding that? And actually, I wanted to kind of take this back to disaster relief because Mike had mentioned that before you jumped on, talking about the speed at which you can shorten the cycle, because any custom build is 20 months on the conservative side or more.
Yes.
Architectural reviews, depending on where you are. I've got an architect here in Scottsdale, and he says it's about 6 to 8 months to turn a permit. For us, it was during COVID, it was 9 months. He goes, he's doing a project in Carmel that's 3+ years to get permits.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're in Malibu. If we say it's done in a year and a half or under 2 years, you're happy, and the client is obviously unhappy because he hasn't even started. He'll go through 3 or 4 marriages by the time the house is done, right? So, I mean, it's just the cycle of construction. Anything I tell people this, I say, listen, people go, oh, is it going to save money? I go, okay, we got to look at it this way. Okay, let's say it's the same dollar per structure, a regular flat lot without a big foundation or not on a hillside. Let's say it is $1,000 a foot. You're going to maybe pay the same amount of money, even using the timber peg process or that type of thing, but you're going to be in quicker. So yeah, that means you're not as renting that other house, and you're able to change, your family is happier. So instead of that year and a half construction, if you can pull it into closer to a year, that's huge, right? Because it's maybe it's the same price to build it, but you're in quicker. Okay, so there is a big price there because you're not doing those other
Yes.
factors. And a lot of times, even in insurance, they only pay for you to rent somewhere for so long, and they don't understand why it takes so much long. The amount of money, the amount of time they say, hey, we'll allow you to come in, we'll pay for your rental for a year when you're displaced from your house. They said, well, that's just covering the permits. I still have to build the
Right.
house too. So then, who pays for that other year and a half? You don't have any money. You were in your house before. How are you paying for rental? So this is so tricky. It's just the numbers are terrible. The insurance is terrible, but I don't even blame the insurance companies either because, the states are not helping in our case of wildfires, to make sure that they're doing everything they can to stop even the wildfire from happening in the first place. So that's my take on all that stuff. It's crazy.
Okay, Doug, no different than Mark Candelaria, my architect down here that I just mentioned that's doing a project in Carmel. You're in Sun Valley, permitting in Sun Valley. I was talking to somebody who was in Eagle, Idaho, which you're familiar with, and he goes, permitting was done in less than 4 hours. They submitted the plans. They phoned him, said, hey, how long will this take? He goes, I'll have it to you by noon. And I don't know what Sun Valley is, but it's not very long. And yet you're at both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah,
It
no,
must
I
drive
mean,
you have some here, but not much. You're going to lose
yeah.
more of it.
We have we're in Blaine County, which is the county up here. And if you're in a county, then it takes you 1 or 2 months to get a permit. If you're in the city of Ketchum or the city of Sun Valley, it does take you 9 months. We tell a story about when we went to Montana. We were with this engineer and an owner, and they walked into the building and safety department. Guys, who are you? It says, hey, I'm the owner of this property. Who are you? I'm the engineer. Who are you? I'm the architect. It says, well, you guys went to school, right? Yeah, right. So did you guys get a degree? Sure. And you guys have your own business? Yeah, sure. We have our own businesses. You guys are licensed in your state? Sure. And you guys have insurance? It says, what the hell are you talking to me for? You three guys know more than I do. Make sure you build on the right lot and have a nice day. So yes, it can take 4 hours. It can take no hours. When I build in Texas, I designed a home for somebody in Fredericksburg. We designed a beautiful Spanish colonial house. Then I designed it all. And I said, well, now we get to go to Texas. We'll go meet the structural engineer. Go meet the structural engineer. That's what the builder does. I says, the builder picks all the beams out. I go, great. Hey, that's cool. So it's like every jurisdiction has just their different ways of doing it. And unfortunately, I have this saying. I said that, the equivalent of the amount of attorneys in your state equals the amount of time it takes to get a permit, because everyone sues each other. In states that don't have as many attorneys, then they get things done quicker. So that's just the end all to do all of this situation. It's pretty crazy.
Just crazy. Yeah, and I'm familiar with Fredericksburg. That might take a little longer because the town's so cute.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine who was actually over here for dinner last night, and he's got a lot at Boot Ranch. He's been there for years.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I mean, jurisdiction. So if you look, that does have a lot to do with it. Nothing's more frustrating than waiting on your permits. And in the end of the day, you can't even sue the jurisdiction anyways. You get sued if there's a problem. So I don't even know why they take so long, and what are they really approving? So it's busy work. I understand what's going on, but still there's a reason that we are licensed and we're insured, and we take the responsibility when we make these decisions. When you're designing a home for life safety or for structural or whatever, that's back in the day. You didn't have to deal with these kind of things. It's crazy.
So, Mike, Timberpeg, WHS Homes, how do you guys deal with the different, Doug brings up permitting issues that are different state to state, county to county. How do you guys deal with it company wide? Do you have to address, if you're going to go into Malibu, different permitting situations?
Yeah, I think for us, California is its own different process.
Yes, it is.
Typically, you have to work with a licensed architect and designer to build a home in California. But every other state that we work in, we are going to design the home based upon the municipal guidelines, and then we work with engineers in every state to make sure that the house is going to pass. If they need to have, an engineer stamp, we do projects in New Jersey where you've got to have potentially an architect stamp. Sometimes we'll work in areas that'll have, architectural review boards, and maybe they're not so stringent that you have to hire an architect, but you've still got 85 pages you've got to weed through to make sure that the house has 25% stone coverage, you've got the right amount of glass, and those things that, we can help clients navigate through as they're trying to design their home.
So you mentioned speed, and that's the one thing that I'm drawing from this conversation is the efficiency, because Doug, when we built our house, it took us 20 months, and had we been able to be in 14 months, which I don't think is an unusual or unrealistic expectation by the homeowner. I mean, they built the Empire State Building in 15 months. So our house is a whole lot less complicated. How does this equate to, you mentioned the fires, several fires in California you've been through. That's 30 years. How does that help in speeding up the whole process so the homeowner is back in their residence quicker? Because we all want things faster.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, it is the entire team and who's involved and who's ordering what. And we ordering materials from Europe or supply chain problems, especially during COVID. So all the parts and pieces, the flooring, the windows and door packages, every single thing that somebody says, no, that's going to be there on time. In fact, it's going to be there before we need it, and we're going to store it on site. So it's just being super organized and making sure that everyone understands that this is the goal, and you can do it. I mean, there's TV shows that build houses in 2 weeks or whatever, right? So, how did they do it, right? So, building in a year, close to a year, it shouldn't be difficult. And we're talking, maybe a 3,000 to 5,000 square foot house. We're not talking 10, 15, 20,000 square. We're talking about everyday housing for normal people,
Right.
Is that size house. And this barn itself is around 3,000. So yeah, it's really just looking at that whole thing. And then that's the point, is that, okay, if you can find a window and door company that you're not waiting 4 months for, that you can get in 2, you might look at them. You might say that our framers are going to be ready. In the case of dealing with Mike's company with Timberpeg, we needed to know the window and door openings so we could have them laser cut in the factory by Mike. We couldn't just lollygag and wait for framing to be done to measure our openings, right? So it's just understanding the whole process, working with professionals that have done it before, that know how to get there quicker. And the design team and everyone needs to be responsible. Owners need to pay the bills. Designers need to not order weird materials from Lithuania. And, you just got to look at, the basics of how you produce a building, and then you can get it done. You can get
Yeah.
it done.
And I think for us, a lot of times, we're trying to make the process of building our homes and delivering our packages efficiently for our clients. So if we give somebody a window, say it's 90 to 120 days, and when we're going to have their package on site, that allows them the time to do all of the site work and foundation. But we're going to do that for 6 or 8 projects every 90 to 120 day window or more. We're going to do 60 to 70 or 80 projects a year, but they're all going to be rolling in that time frame so that all of these projects can be going simultaneously. Whereas sometimes you'll have a project that takes 6 months to get off the ground, and then they're cutting the first 2x4 that first day instead of starting the first part of our package that first day, and all of a sudden they've got something that's weather tight in 3 weeks instead of 2.5 months.
So, Mike, what if you're supplying a timber peg package for the Southeast, as an example? What is the biggest hurdle that you need to get over from an education standpoint to those contractors or architects?
That it can be done as quickly as somebody could build it down there. Obviously, the Southeast in particular, you've got a much deeper labor pool than you have in other areas of the country. And so it's much easier to put a larger group of people on site to stick frame a building. But you're not always going to get the same level of building that a lot of our clients are looking to build. And so if somebody's looking for us to build a 5,000 square foot home, say in North or South Carolina up in the mountains, they want something that's going to be prefabricated from us. They're going to have the foundation in, and then our package is going to arrive, and they want it to go up quickly and efficiently so that they can get their subs in and then move on to the next project.
I just see prefab as a much more efficient way of doing anything.
Yeah, and I think that for us, we have to kind of get around I think a little bit of the stigma that prefab can be modular. And so modular has a little bit of a connotation that it can be a little bit lesser quality, whereas our product is obviously not a lesser quality. It's just systems built to be more efficient.
I mean, I like to use the term custom fabricated because it's nothing prefab, because fabrication is a fine word. It's prefab, just the connotation, but it's custom fabrication because it's customized to your home, your project.
Yep.
So that's as simple as it takes. It's not like it's just off the shelf. No, it's custom to your project. Custom prefabrication is a better terminology to use towards this. And it's different. This is not like you're just building what the typical in a modular home where everything has to be 12 feet wide and 12 feet high and 50 feet long, and parts they sit on a truck and they all come together, which is a totally different type of construction.
Yeah.
What Mike is doing is providing the parts and pieces. They're all put together, pre-finished, pre-stained, numbered, and put on multiple trucks and shipped to you like the UPS man shows up to your door. Excuse me, sir. Here's your dog food, and here's your water.
That's right.
And here's your home.
Right. And by the way, here's your timber frame package.
It's like, hey, can you sign here? So, okay, well, yeah, whatever. So somebody has to put together that stuff, but it's pretty cool the way it all comes together.
I think your comment about a Lego set is absolutely a great visual for people, because then all of a sudden it becomes a simple process instead of every stick is manual in the typical framing of any home. To have it all, call it paint by numbers, whatever. And Doug, obviously your home right there that I'm looking at, the rafters, is spectacular.
Yeah, no, it's been a labor of love. We love it. Besides the wedding, we do a lot of charity events here. We do other weddings for other families, and anything we do to help out the community. We've got a end of the school event happening in a month. A local school here that couldn't find a place, and we let them use our property. They walk in here and they love it. So between us and you mentioned about the Figgy barn, there are multiple other barns, but that's what you live in a small town, and people hear about things. Can we come to your property? He says, sure. You want other people to enjoy it. So it's kind of great that way. It's not just for our use.
Yeah, it was great to hear you say that though, when we talked about, this project last, Doug.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times we'll look at, there's just so many charity. In fact, Sun Valley has, I heard, like more charitable organizations. And so we try to like spread the love around and give it where we can. So we enjoy that. It's fun to give back to the community.
So, Doug, how much time do you, it's probably a different dynamic than Malibu. How much time do you spend in Southern California?
Well, I'm down there every other week now, just because we're servicing clients and talking to new clients and working with my office. I've got a partner who runs the office day to day, but I'm down there, like every other week. And one of my twin boys, the one that did not get married, he actually lives in Malibu, and so we stay together there. He works down there, so I try to go down there, and so it's not just working. I'm with my family and other friends, so it's not bad, and it's a nonstop flight, so you can get in and out of here in a couple hours. It's a good thing.
That makes it so much easier when it's a nonstop flight, right, Mike? I mean, you and I are on
Yeah.
planes a lot.
Well, no, some people in LA, it's not funny. I mean, they're commuting for an hour and a half or 2 hours a day. I mean, I'm commuting, but I'm 1,000 miles away, 3, 4 states away. But it makes it certainly easy. And nowadays with the internet and just doing business, you can kind of be anywhere and conduct your business, which is great.
It's interesting, nonstop flights. I live in Phoenix, and we just went to the IBS show in Orlando. I literally flew to Tampa, so it was a nonstop flight, and I drove an hour and a half because I'd much rather do that than sit in Charlotte for 2 hours and then
Yeah.
get on another plane.
Yeah. No, it all worked out good. Yeah. No, this whole experience has just been great. Mike and he still checks in every once in a while and how everything's going. And, has anything fallen down? I go, no, I don't, things haven't fallen down yet. So we're still okay there. But no, we certainly get a lot of compliments on the place itself. My wife and I take great pride in what we accomplished here. And, it did take a whole team approach, and we'll certainly do it again if we have an opportunity to do that.
So last question, and it goes back down to the fires. How do you see working together and expediting putting and I know that you're only one piece of it, but I just mean in general, that area is so iconic. And I mean, the Palisades is also where Riviera Golf Club is, which I'm a huge golfer, and I was just thinking, I hope that doesn't burn, which clearly it didn't. What's the process? How's that going to get back, in your eyes, how's that going to get back to quote unquote normal?
Well, I mean, normal is, you could say, a home or a building is rebuilt at that location. It's unfortunate. It's not necessarily for the original homeowner. A lot of these homeowners are elderly, and they just don't want to go through the process again, even though that's their major asset in their family, and that's the money for their property. So maybe their kids might rebuild. We're getting into that. It's just natural. It's not like it's intentional, but you do have then developers come in and they'll buy up properties and they'll develop, but at least they're creating housing back into those locations. So I'm not blaming a developer. I mean, anybody can sell their house even once they're completed or in the process. So I'm encouraged by the speed of this of the Palisades, and then Malibu's kind of catching up. They just have a little more, it's more issues when you're building on a beach. And so it takes a little longer to get a permit. But no, it's going to take everybody. That's why I'm saying every project that we come together and I meet a new client, I'm always thinking of Mike's company in the back of my mind saying, hey, maybe you don't want a modern house. Maybe we do have a vaulted ceiling. Because I talked to Mike this. Yes, you may have hiding a lot of these things, posts and beams in the walls, but maybe the trusses want to be shown. Mike's showing a picture behind him that shows, hey, most of those trusses are shown, but maybe not the beams. The posts that support it are not shown. So, you don't have to hide everything. And so there are opportunities. We thought we had a couple jobs lined up, but the clients, they still were working out insurance, and this is a year and 3 months later, and they're going to be. We're going to have this over the next few years dealing with this, and it's going to go on for 10 years, 15 years. But as long as Mike is still in business, I can give him a call, and hopefully we can do something together.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the case.
I bet you Mike's in business longer than we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Something
And
tells me.
our barns are still standing, and hopefully not the next fire. Listen, we have wildfires up here in Idaho, and so we have to just be prepared. But it's all about ember control and not letting embers into attics and crawl spaces. We don't have that in this building, so we feel pretty good. You have good metal roofs, good metal siding, fire resistant assemblies outside. You could be in Arizona. There's fire risk everywhere. So let's just build smarter and try to do things better.
We're going to leave
exactly.
that to the architects to figure out ways to do it smarter.
Yeah.
And then
That's
you're
right.
going to tell Mike, hey, we want you to do this. And he's going to go, yes, sir. Thank you very
And
much.
then we're going to do it more efficiently.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Exactly. That's all we can hope for.
Hey, Doug, thanks for taking a little time to talk to us this morning. I'm a big fan of Sun Valley. Palisades is spectacular, so it's hard to beat that place. And Mike, it's always a treat to talk to you. Every time we do it, it becomes more and more enjoyable.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Ted, for taking us in.
My pleasure. Okay, Mike, look forward to seeing you at our house in Scottsdale at some point in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Fellas. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and leave us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. You can find everything discussed in this episode and more in our show notes below. I'm Ted Bainbridge, and you've been listening to Friends of Build Magazine podcast.